Welcome to Module 2, Part 2, Teaching Adults. So far, we have discussed how adults learn, and in comparing pedagogy to andragogy, we have also discussed how strategies and approaches to learning are truly different in practice. Within this section, we will continue to explore andragogy and the techniques recommended to best teach adults. Up to this point, all learning has been high level and definition based. However, beginning in this section, we will begin making our learning applicable and real, and you'll be provided with the knowledge and tools necessary to begin implementing your learning into your own classroom. As an overview in this section, we will be discussing the term andragogy, going over the history of andragogy as a learning concept, uncover the deeply connected adult learning theory, and we'll narrow our focus to the 5 assumptions of adult learning theory that we will be using and applying to your classrooms or your university role within this training. As you read and saw in the previous section of this module, pedagogy is the training and education of children. In pedagogy, the teacher or instructor is at the center of the learning, and they're responsible for determining what is to be learned and how it is to be learned. In pedagogy, students take much more of a back seat to the learning and are a passive participant in the learning process as a result. Because of this, children need extrinsic motivators such as prizes, rewards, including grades, to maintain motivation in the classroom. The content in pedagogy is subject-centered in that there is little reference to how the learning will be applied to the real world and little emphasis on how the learning can be focused to solve problems later in life. Contrarily, andragogy is the teaching and training of adults, as adults learn differently than that of children. Andragogy has differences in delivery and focus to meet these specific needs. In andragogy, the learning is learner-centered, and the teacher and/or instructor functions as more of a facilitator than a dictator on the content. Adults want and need to be involved in the evaluation and creation of the content they are learning, and as such, they are very self-motivated. Andragogy is also problem-centered in that it relates to how the adult learner may be able to use what they are learning within the real world. Adults want to be able to be more effective or more efficient in their professional lives, or they may want to pursue additional learning for a personal reason. Either way, their motivating factors for adults are to meet a specific need, and so the content itself must be made applicable and relevant to their lives. Adult learning is much more about the acquisition of a usable skill than pedagogy, where the focus is on learning for learning's sake. To really think through the ways in which children and adults learn differently, consider the human brain to be a filing cabinet. For young learners, there's mostly empty space, and it's easy to add new knowledge into a new file and to keep everything stored. But for the adult learner, all experiences, memories, and prior knowledge are already stored. Adult learners have a full filing cabinet, and it can be difficult to add new files in without a coding system and without attaching files to others, like your previous experiences or prior knowledge. Because adults have lived lives, their filing cabinets are full of information, and with each new concept they learn, there's likely a need to attach it to some prior knowledge. So, andragogy is the teaching of adults. Literally, the word means teaching man, whereas pedagogy means teaching children. Andragogy is the term used to refer to the nuanced ways in which adults learn, and the teaching strategies that over time we have come to understand work best in the training and education of adults. The history of andragogy. The use of andragogy, and therefore the concentrated use of educational techniques and strategies most effective in the education of adults, is fairly new to the educational landscape. The term andragogy was initially used in the 1830s by Alexander Kapp, and was used again by fellow German Rosenstock in 1921, who used it to illuminate the ways adults learn that are different than that of how children learn. Edward Lederman used it in England in 1926 when he emphasized the importance of how our experiences inform our learning through adulthood. However, the term andragogy really became popularized in 1980 when Malcolm Knowles used it to describe his adult learning theory. Over time, Knowles proposed 6 assumptions of adult learners, 4 initially and 2 added later. Throughout this training, we will be focusing on 5 of the 6 to best support adult learner populations within the classroom. Originally coined by Malcolm Knowles in the 1980s, adult learning theory is a set of principles and assumptions that allow educators to use andragogy, the teaching of adults, within their classroom. drawing heavily on the understanding that adults use experiences to inform their learning, and adults prefer learner-centered approach to their learning. Adult learning theory enhances the traditional pedagogical approach to education and produces opportunities for additional interaction, ownership, and connectivity with learning for adults. Within the adult learning theory, there are 5 assumptions we're going to focus on. Each of these assumptions speak to the ways in which adults learn and the ways in which we as educators can alter the learning process in small ways to best support their education. The assumptions we're going to focus on are self-concept, experience, readiness to learn, orientation to learn, and motivation to learn. We'll define each of these in greater detail, but these assumptions are meant to work together in order to provide the adult learner with an ideal learning environment, and each can be leveraged by an instructor or a teacher to bring about a higher level of adult learner interaction, engagement, and academic achievement. Number 1, self-concept. Adult learners feel responsible for their learning and naturally take on this responsibility for how their learning progresses. They are self-directed and can oftentimes manage themselves while learning. This is twofold: taking ownership of what and how they learn, and self-direction in the management and motivation to learn. Adult learners want to be involved in the creation, goal setting, and evaluation of their learning. To facilitate self-concept within the classroom, instructors should assist adults in feeling as if they have a level of control or autonomy in the learning process. This could be accomplished by providing choices for assignments, using video recordings of lectures so learners can skip around, pause, and replay, providing additional optional readings and resources within the course to foster personal choice and to allow adult learners to develop deeper meaning and understanding. Adult learners also love to be assessed using a rubric, which would allow them to first assess their own learning before submission. It's also helpful for adult learners to be part of setting their own educational goals, as they know themselves as a learner best. Number 2, experience. Drawing on a much more expansive list of experiences than their child learning counterparts, adult learners rely heavily on their experiences to inform current learning, which can be a challenge, as this reliance on experience can easily lead to bias in adult learners. In this case, sometimes adult learners are actually unlearning previously held understandings. Adults' experiences heavily shape how they see themselves and assist in the creation of their personal identities. These experiences serve as their main resource for learning. As such, it assists adult learners when content is attached to previous experience and existing knowledge. By activating prior knowledge and experiences, learners are better able to apply prior knowledge and integrate that new knowledge into previous understandings. In order to do this, instructors and teachers can encourage adult learners to share what they already know about a topic before a new lesson begins. This can build on adult learners' prior experiences and assist in creating connections to new content. This can be done through discussion boards or open discussion before, during, and after a lesson. Providing opportunities for adult learners to make concrete connections to prior knowledge will assist them in the acquisition and relevance of that new knowledge. The third assumption in adult learning theory we are focusing on is readiness to learn. Adult learners need their learning to be timeline-focused, applicable, and useful for their professional and personal lives. As a learner matures, they are ready to learn new things as their life demands it, such as a new skill for a job, or as they personally become interested, such as curiosity or self-development. In this way, adults illustrate a readiness to learn when they can clearly identify the content's relevance to their lives. Instructors can assist in establishing an adult learner's readiness to learn by answering the "what's in it for me?" question. As much as possible, break down the skills they are learning and how they can use these skills in their lives. Tap into an adult learner's inherent desire to solve problems, particularly practical ones, by providing authentic learning experiences, such as experiential learning, or by providing real-world examples of how this content can be used in everyday life. Hands-on experiences and learning such as project-based learning and even job shadowing are great tools to use to create real-world relevancy as well. The fourth assumption is orientation to learning. This is where the notion of problem-centered learning comes in for adults. In this way, adults are more likely to learn in an environment where the content is task-driven, contextualized, and experiential when possible. As a learner matures, they are interested in the immediacy of application. Learning is specific to acquired skills, versus that of basic theoretical knowledge. Instructors can assist adult learners in their orientation to learning by identifying the skills that are being attained from the learning, rather than simply the theoretical understandings. As mentioned previously, adult learners are driven by the why, and they like to see how what they are learning can be immediately applied to their lives. Provide opportunity for class to brainstorm the applicability of the content. Use case studies to show the content in a real-world scenario, solving a real-world problem. Include professionals from the community to identify the everyday use of the content, and ensure that classroom instruction is task-centered rather than theoretical and/or content-centered whenever possible. The fifth and final assumption within adult learning theory we will be discussing is motivation to learn. Adults, generally speaking, derive their motivations from within. They are far more likely to be motivated intrinsically by drivers such as self-development, personal curiosity, self-satisfaction, and personal enjoyment. Adults learn best when they can see the value in their learning. As a learner matures, their motivation to learn is mostly internal. They understand the benefit of taking an additional training, reading a book for work, or even taking a class to see the fruits of their labor pay off in a promotion or higher workplace productivity as a result. As such, adults are not as motivated by external factors and rarely require additional rewards, awards, prizes, or other forms of external motivation to stay focused. Instructors can assist adult learners in sharpening their motivation to learn by assisting them in identifying the learner's driving motivator for learning, such as a new job, a better job, or personal satisfaction, and use this knowledge to set a goal. This can be done by discussing what the learner hopes to gain from the content. This will assist in goal setting, and application of skill to real-world scenarios, and will ground the learner in their personal why. Naturally, adult learning theory does not apply equally to all adults, and each adult learner will bring with them a variety of needs, backgrounds, and experiences that may alter how they learn. A great example of this is completing a training required by your job, maybe like this one. Some adult learners will feel motivated by this to understand their role better, but others will struggle to feel motivated as they were not consulted on the importance or effectiveness of this training before being required to take it. It's also important to note at the university level that many of our students carry with them experiences that strongly shape their learning, even our youngest students, and therefore adult learning theory's principles can oftentimes be applied to younger learners as well. As such, many see adult learning theory as a framework to use for quality teaching for all learners who benefit from conceptualized learning and involvement in the learning process. Just as disability accommodations in the classroom, such as a captioned video, benefit students who do not have a disability, the application of adult learning theory's assumptions into the classroom benefits all students, regardless of age. In review, we have discussed andragogy, or the training and teaching of adults. We've gone over how andragogy has evolved into adult learning theory, and went through the 5 assumptions of adult learning theory, including self-concept, experience, readiness to learn, orientation to learning, and motivation to learn. And lastly, we discussed the ways in which you can think through some of the strategies to implement each of these assumptions into your own classroom. Within this module, you will be asked to consider each of the 5 assumptions within adult learning theory, and think through how you may be able to create implementation pathways within your classroom for each. Using the rubric provided, you are asked to think through how each of these assumptions can be applied to your specific class in order to make it more supportive, adapted, accessible, and applicable for your adult learners within your classroom.